You ever have one of those conversations where, the words sound perfectly fine, but something just feels off? Well, that's because there's a whole other conversation happening beneath the surface. Today, we're going to decode that hidden language, the unspoken story our bodies are telling every single second.
So let's just start with this one number, 93%. What in the world is this all about? It's not the words you're choosing, it's not your grammar, it's pretty much everything else.
And here's what that number actually looks like. Some really famous research shows that a massive 93% of how our communication lands comes from nonverbal cues. Your actual words, that's just a tiny 7% slice of the whole pie. Think about that. If you're only paying attention to what's being said, you are missing almost the entire conversation.
All right, so where do we even begin to unpack that massive 93%? Well, let's start with the big stuff. The loudest signals our bodies are sending out all the time, our posture and our gestures. This is really the foundation of the body's silent language.
I mean, just look at the difference here. An open posture, standing tall, shoulders back, it just screams confidence and power. It's a leadership stance. Now, contrast that with a closed posture, slouching, maybe crossing your arms. That sends a totally different message. Defensiveness, maybe you're not interested, or even that you're submissive. It's a tiny physical shift that can completely change how your message is received.
And this isn't just theory. It plays out in the real world all the time. Picture two trainers in front of a room. One is standing tall, open, making eye contact. The whole team is locked in, right? The other one's kind of hunched over, closed off. And what happens? People start checking their phones, they're multitasking. Your posture all by itself can either command a room or lose it completely.
Okay, so from our overall posture, let's zoom in on something even more expressive, our hands. I mean, think about it. Our hands are always moving, they're always talking. They can either back up what we're saying with honesty, or with just one little gesture, they can totally contradict our words.
So using them the right way is absolutely crucial. First up, the palms exposed gesture. This signals openness, honesty. It's fantastic for building trust with your peers. Then you've got the palms down gesture. This is more of a power move. It signals authority, so it's useful when you're giving clear directions. And finally, the pointed finger. Oh boy, you gotta be so careful with this one. It almost always feels aggressive or condescending. Honestly, it's a gesture that's probably best to just keep in your pocket.
All right, we've talked about the big signals from the body. Now let's move up to something a lot more nuanced and frankly, a lot more powerful. The cues from our face and especially our eyes. This is where you really learn how to read the room.
We've all heard that saying, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And it might sound a little cliche, but in the business world, it's literally true. Eye contact is how you show you're being sincere, it's how you project confidence, and it's how you build that bedrock of trust.
But here's the thing, not all eye contact is the same. There's the business gaze, where you focus on a little triangle on the person's forehead. It keeps things professional. Then there's the social gaze, which drops down to include the eyes, nose, and mouth. It's much more relaxed. And finally, the intimate gaze, which goes from the eyes down past the chin, and yeah, that one's best saved for your personal life.
So if you're talking to a group, what's the magic number? Well, you want to aim to be making eye contact with your audience about 60 to 70% of the time. That really is the sweet spot. It's just enough to make everyone feel included and engaged without being, weird or starey-eye.
And of course, it's not just our eyes. Our whole face is an emotional billboard. And what's wild is that scientists have found 7 facial expressions that are recognized all over the world. In any culture, they are happiness, sadness, anger, disgust, fear, surprise, and contempt.
But these expressions show up in 2 very different ways. You've got macro expressions. Those are the obvious ones. They last for a few seconds when we're not trying to hide what we feel. But then, there are micro expressions. And these are the real secret. They are these tiny, involuntary flashes of true emotion that zip across our face in a fraction of a second, revealing what someone's actually trying to hide.
Okay, so that sounds cool, but how does this actually work in the real world? I mean, how can spotting one of these little flashes give you a huge advantage? Let's walk through a scenario.
Imagine you're in a sales meeting. The client says, "Thanks, but we've got plenty of stock." Okay, the words are polite, right? It's a no. But for just a split second, you see one side of their mouth lift up in a tiny sneer. That's a micro expression of contempt, and it tells you everything. The problem isn't their stock level, it's that they're just not interested in your product. And that one tiny clue, it changes your entire game plan.
So we've covered our bodies, our faces, but there's another massive piece of this nonverbal puzzle we have to talk about, the sound of your voice. Because how you say something can literally flip the meaning of the words you're using.
This actually has a name. It's called vocalics. It's all about the nonverbal cues in your voice. Think about it, the pitch, how high or low your voice is, the speed you talk at, your volume, and even the way you use pauses. Every single one of those things adds another layer of meaning to what you're saying.
And in really tough situations, getting your vocalics right is absolutely everything. Imagine a leader who has to announce layoffs. The room is terrified, but by using a calm, even tone and a measured pace, that leader can project sincerity and empathy. Their voice alone can help build trust, even while they're delivering the worst possible news.
Okay, posture, gestures, eyes, faces, your voice. How on earth are you supposed to manage all that at once? Well, it all comes down to one single powerful skill, emotional intelligence. We call it EQ, and it is the master key that ties all of this together.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The data here is just jaw-dropping. Take a look. An incredible 90% of top performers in the workplace have high emotional intelligence. And on the other side of the coin, 80% of low performers have low EQ. The connection between emotional intelligence and success? It's undeniable.
So what even is EQ? Well, it basically breaks down into 4 parts. First is self-awareness, just knowing what you're feeling. Next is self-management, that's controlling your reactions. Then you develop social awareness, the ability to tune in to what other people are feeling. And finally, you bring it all home with relationship management, using all that insight to build stronger connections.
All right, let's put it all together in a final practical example. We're going to see how a team leader, Gayatri, used all 4 of these EQ skills to find and fix a problem that nobody was even talking about. So here's what happened. In a meeting, Gayatri noticed one of her team members seemed really agitated. That's social awareness. Now, instead of calling him out in front of everyone, she controlled her impulse and decided to talk to him privately later. That's self-management. She then created a safe space for him to talk, which is relationship management. And by empowering him to find his own solution, she didn't just solve the problem, she strengthened their entire working relationship. That is EQ in action. And so we come full circle. Your words are only ever the very tip of the iceberg. They're just 7% of the story you're telling. So the real question, the one you should walk away with, is this. What is your other 93% saying about you?